Grr, arg.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mixtape Podcast, the podcast dedicated to discussing film from a writer's perspective. I'm your host for this time around. My name is Marcelo Nostroza, joined as always by my fellow co-host, Dean Stark. And on today's edition of the show, we will be discussing the 1986 film Jumping Jack Flash. So, as I do every week, I shall pass it over to Dean.
Jumping Jack Flash was directed by the one and only Penny Marshall, and if you think you know that name, she directed A League of Their Own, among other amazing things. She's passed away now, but we will always love Penny Marshall. It was written by David Franzoni, Charles Shire, Nancy Myers, and Chris Thompson. And if you don't know what Jumping Jack Flash is, because I don't think a lot of people know what it is about, it's one of my personal favorite comedy movies of all time.
How dare people not know what Jumping Jack Flash is about?
How dare they? Jumping Jack Flash is about this. An American bank teller is thrust into the world of international espionage after she receives a coded message from a British spy. So the opening scene, we meet Terry Doolittle, which is played by Whoopi Goldberg, and she lives in New York City. It's a messy place. There's shit everywhere. It's a poor part of the city, and it's just kind of her getting ready for work. She goes down the street. She says hello to the neighbor, so she's well liked. She jumps on the bus to her job, and she works in the foreign exchange trading room at the First National Bank. She arrives at work and happily says hello to her boss, and her boss, Mr. Page. Now, her boss, she's like, looking good, nice suit. And her boss is like, just like looks at her up and down. And Terry's like, I don't get it. Because her boss says hello and with a smile to everybody else but her. So right off the bat, you know that he just has something against her, does not like her. So Terry gets to her desk and it's messy again. It kind of mirrors her apartment. And there's like little knickknacks everywhere. We meet a few of her co-workers who all really like her, including Cynthia, who is her closest friend, who sits next to her at the next like computer desk. But it really shows that she's well liked by everybody. There's not one person co-worker-wise that doesn't like her. And then one of them walks past her and says, thank you for fixing her monitor, because she's a bit of a computer whiz. And then Terry's monitor starts picking up a TV signal and she tinkers with it and kind of gets her monitor back to work again. And then Cynthia says she's some kind of computer whiz, because I don't know how she knows how to do that. So that kind of sets her up as like she knows what she's doing when it comes to computers. Next minute, her boss comes out and asks to see her in his office, and he's not happy. We're introduced to Terry, we're introduced to where she works, we're introduced to she's well liked, and we're introduced to her job and what she does. So, thoughts?
I really love how this film, specifically from the start of it, really gives you a sense of Terry's character. Her apartment is in entire disarray, but her apartment has a couple key things that are telling about her personality. On the wall of her apartment, she has a poster for Casablanca, and to me, that signifies that she's a hopeless romantic. She also has like these glass dolls in her apartment that really look freaky, but they look cool. I love how her apartment gives the audience a sense of her personality. Her apartment echoes how she is in the film. When she finally gets to where she works, all the computers around her are very simple, and they don't have any like knickknacks or accoutrements. But when we come to her station is full of dinosaurs and full of crap and full of stuff. And I like the contrast that the writers sort of display in that moment, as if to say everybody in this world is plain and simple, and Terry is the one character in this movie who is crazy and thinks out of the box.
Yes. No, I agree. It shows that like she's different to everybody else. So yeah, you're right. You're right on score with that. So Terry goes into her boss's office and he asks her, Miss Doolittle, how would you define her job? And she says, to transfer funds and accept the transfer of funds between international banking establishments using the computer so that the transfer of funds are more easily called upon. And he says, right, okay, so how do you end a transmission? And she says, I enter end trans. And then he says, So why are you engaging in what seems to be like he's saying unprofessional conversations with people you're transferring funds for? And she says she's just talking to them because they're human beings. She's transferring their funds, but sometimes they want to have like a human connection conversation. So she engages with them, exchanges recipes, helps them with their love life. She's just being friendly. But he says, you need to do your job, or basically, I'm going to fire you. He doesn't want any conversations. That's not her job. Do not say anything. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this guy's a dick because she's just talking to these people and it's like, just do your job. That's it. Do not converse. That's not what I pay you for. But it really shows why he doesn't like her. But it also shows that she wants human connection because she's well liked by everyone. She's well liked by people in her neighborhood and she's engaging in conversations online. She doesn't have to, but she wants to because she wants that connection. So I really like that scene.
You know, as much as Terry's boss is a fucking prick throughout this whole movie, he is right though, because somebody who is in her position and somebody who is working for a bank should comport herself in the most professional manner possible. Just because Terry is a lonely individual and just because Terry is someone who is striving for a connection doesn't give her the permission to talk to 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 go off topic with people that she's transferring funds for. Now, that being said, the fact that Terry does open up to her clients in that way does does show the audience that she is lonely, that she's looking for connection, and that she is personable. But I do agree with the way that her boss reacted to her in that instance, although he is a fucking dick.
From his perspective, um, I get it, but also, is it hurting anyone? Is she behind in her work? You know, have there been any complaints pushed on her?
No,
Like that's the thing. Like if it's not a problem
yeah,
and she's still doing her job,
right,
I don't know what the issue is. Because that's
right,
gonna make people stick with that bank if they like the
right,
person they're talking to, which is something he's not thinking of. He's like, just do the job and don't say anything and do what I pay you to do. I understand what he's saying, but what
right,
she's doing is not necessarily a bad thing.
right. And it no, and it is mentioned early on in the film that she is the best worker in the office.
Exactly. And that's because she connects with the people and they want to go with her to do the transfers. That's why, which is something that goes over him and many, many, many managers' heads.
I'm gonna rethink what I just said.
Yeah, because like I get why you're saying it. I totally get it. He's just a dick. That's all I got. He's just a fucking dick, and he doesn't think about things. Anyway, the workday ends and kind of everyone leaves, and Terry gets a message on her computer that says knock knock, and she's not supposed to get like random messages, right? Because she's not on the system. And then Terry writes back, "Who is this?" And it replies with Jumping Jack Flash. And they kind of message back and forth when he says, sing with me and find the key tomorrow at 7 p.m. And it's kind of, it intrigues you because you don't know what's going on. And he's not connected to any terminal in the bank. How did he break into her computer? Like, what's going on? And then she goes home. And this is so funny. She's at home and she's making like mac and cheese or something. And she's sitting and she's watching a romance movie alone and she's totally entranced by the love story. Like she goes to put the mac and cheese up to her lips and there's just this really close romantic scene on the TV and she's just like, she can't even eat her food. She's so enthralled, which shows the audience she wants that. That's what she wants. She wants love. She lives alone. She eats, microwavable mac and cheese or whatever it is that she's eating. And she wants to project herself into an amazing, like, love story. So that kind of sets up her character too.
Yeah, I listen. I really love that moment when Terry's in the office. Terry's the only one left in the office, and she gets the first message from Jumping Jack Flash, and just a simple thing is going knock knock, and her asking, "Who the hell is this?" And then him just basically posing this question, and just posing this question to not only her but to the audience, like, "What the fuck is going on here?" But to your point, when she goes home and when she makes dinner for herself. Penny Marshall and the writers of this movie do a great job of illustrating to the audience that not only is Terry a lonely person longing for connection, but Terry, in her heart of hearts, is a hopeless romantic, and I just love that aspect of her character, and I love the aspect of this film that she is essentially going to go on a traditional romantic journey throughout the course of this film, but it's going to be a romantic journey in the most exciting, wackiest way possible.
So this is one of my favorite scenes. It's hilarious. So Terry, she's in bed and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and she's unable to sleep. And then she's like, fuck, I have to I don't know what is Jumping Jack Flash. It's like the Rolling Stones. Like that's the only thing she can think of. So she rummages through her cassette tape collection. Yes, cassette tape collection. This is 1986. Finds the Rolling Stones, finds the song Jumping Jack Flash, because for all those people out there, Jumping Jack Flash is actually a Rolling Stones song. Just for the youngins that don't know. So she thinks the code, whatever it is in the lyrics. So she pops it in the cassette tape player. Now, this is the time where Google didn't exist. So the only way to know lyrics of a song was to listen to the song and write down the lyrics as the song plays. Now, we did that in the 90s as well because, again, there was no internet. We had to fucking painstakingly listen to songs and write down lyrics. Anyway, so she's playing the song back, but Mick Jagger, he kind of mushes his words together, so it's really hard to know what he's saying. And what ensues is like one of the most hilarious scenes of Whoopi Goldberg trying to figure out what the fuck Mick Jagger is saying in the song, because she's right. She's saying everything that she's saying. It sounds like he's saying it, but he's not saying it. It's like saying something completely different. I don't know. People that have seen this movie know what I'm talking about. So she's trying to figure out what the fuck he's saying. By the end, she's so exhausted. She's lying on the floor. She's like, Mick, speak English. Like she cannot figure out what he's fucking saying in the song. And but then we cut to a scene from outside and we see that her apartment, there's a guy sitting in a car outside her apartment watching her window. So right there we know, what is that? So she's in something. So that's the first kind of little thing that, like, why would somebody be watching a random, like, yeah, you know that she's into something.
I absolutely love the scene because it just brought me back to the days when I was a kid listening to the radio, hoping that my favorite song would come over the radio so I could press record on my tape recorder. Like
I
watching.
did that too. I still have my radio mixtapes. I still have them.
Yeah. Case in point, if you guys are wondering why the hell our podcast is called the Mixtape Podcast, well,
There you go.
there you go. That's why. Because back in the day when we were kids, we had these little things called tapes.
Yes, we do.
But what's serious? It was just such a fun kinetic scene watching Whoopi Goldberg trying to decode the lyrics of Jumping Jack Flash and watching her get more and more frustrated as she just couldn't do it. And the best part about it was me thinking, like Dean said, this was supposed to be like at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and her cassette setup didn't have like a jack to connect headphones. So like, I'm wondering, like, is the whole apartment hearing Mick Jagger? Is the whole apartment hearing? So sorry, hold up. I was wondering, is the whole apartment hearing Mick Jagger Jumping Jack Flash at like 2 o'clock in the morning? What the fuck?
Probably, yeah. Yep.
But again, seriously, it was a wonderful, wonderful scene. And the button on the scene was when we go outside and across the street, we see this guy smoking the cigarette. And that sort of indicates to the audience that maybe Terry is getting in a little bit over her head. And it also indicates to the audience that some fucking shady shit is possibly going to go down.
So Terry's back at work the next night and everybody's left and she's the only one there, and she's bought the sheet music for Jumping Jack Flash, the song by the Rolling Stones. Now, her boss comes in and asks why she's working so late. And she's like, oh, I'm just catching up for work, being a good worker. And he says, oh, can I see what you're doing? As soon as he sees that, she full on goes into this cockamamie story, starts crying, starts holding onto his shirt, saying, please, I need to get this promotion. I need to get it, or I'll just die. He doesn't know what to do. He just backs away. He's like, all right, we'll just keep working, and you'll get that promotion. And she's like, all right, good night. Good night. And then he walks out of the room and she's like, all right. So she turns to the computer. So she just turns it on and off, right? She goes back to the computer and there's a message that comes in that says enter code key. And so she tries so many times to enter it. She had Mick, Jagger, Rolling Stones, gas. Like she tries so many things. What could be the code? And it's not working. So she gets so fucking frustrated. And then she looks at the sheet music and then back at enter code key. And she's like, okay. So she enters B flat and it's right. And this opens up the server at that Jumpin Jack Flash is using so it can be traced. My question is, listen, one of my favorite movies, but I always struggled with how did she guess it was B flat? There was, we didn't, I know it says enter code key, but is the song in B flat? Is that what it is? The whole song is in B flat? Is that how she got it?
The entire song of Jumpin' Jack Flash by the Rolling Stones is in B flat, so that's how she's got it. I don't know what Penny Marshall was trying to indicate to the audience by showing us the computer screen and then Whoopi looking down at the paper and then putting it together that the song was actually in B flat. Like the easier way to do that would have been to basically show that same shot, but instead of showing the computer screen, she should have just shown Whoopi looking at the paper and then sort of like with her hand playing the paper like a piano.
There should have been a shot of the paper because it was the sheet music. So if we actually saw on the paper B flat, then it was like, but we didn't see what was on it.
That was a scene where Penny Marshall could have communicated to the audience a little bit better that Whoopi Goldberg figured out what the key code was by figuring out that this song, Jumpin' Jack Flash, was actually recorded in B flat.
Yeah, right.
The best, there are two genius things about this scene. When Terry is sitting at her desk and her supervisor comes in, the dick, and he says, "Why are you working late?" And when Whoopi Goldberg goes into hysterics and starts yelling and starts crying, as a kid and even as an adult, it's like it's one of my top moments in the film. But the moment that I absolutely love, like my favorite moment in this movie, hands down, is the moment when she breaks into the server where she can actually talk to Jumpin' Jack Flash directly, and she just goes on this rant. And she goes, Terry. It's like, oh my God. The amount of energy that Whoopi Goldberg expels when she figures out the code key is amazing. She like has this guttural yeah. And behind her, you see the two ladies cleaning up the office, looking at this woman like she's lost her fucking mind.
So Terry and Jack, Jumpin' Jack Flash, because now we call him Jack, they're messaging back and forth when he asks her, look, can you deliver a message to the British consulate? And I need you to ask for Department C. And she asks, what is the message? And he writes, dogs barking, can't fly without umbrella. And she's like, yeah, I can't just walk into the British consulate talking about dogs barking. And then like we cut to next minute, we're at the British consulate. So she goes in and a man named Jeremy Talbot comes out and asks how he can help her. So she does this thing where she hides behind a plant, like she's trying to be like covert. She says, dogs barking, can't fly without umbrella. And he's like, what? And so she says it again. He goes, no, I heard what you said. I just don't know what you mean. And she goes, are you from Department C? And he's like, no, we don't have a Department C. And she's like, okay, well, this is from Jumpin' Jack Flash. And he's like, I still have no idea what you're talking about. She's like, oh, well, I'm sorry I wasted your time. But as she leaves the consulate, someone is photographing her like from high above without her knowing. So this is the second time that someone's been kind of surveilling her. But we don't know why yet, and we don't know who Jack is. He just said, "Go here, give a message." So we know nothing about him.
As a kid, this scene to me was the one scene that really, really I thought that this scene could have been taken out of the movie, but the one thing that really saved the scene from me, and the one thing that sort of made the scene important and critical, is the fact that when she goes to the consulate, after she speaks to the guy working at the consulate, and the guy says that, I don't know what you're talking about, and we have no Department C. The one thing that makes the scene critical is when Terry walks out, like Dean just said, a guy photographs her from up above. If that act didn't happen, I don't necessarily think that the scene would have been necessary. Like, the scene is funny, but it's not as funny as the rest of the movie. Like, am I crazy by that, or do you think that the writers and Penny Marshall just needed the scene to push the story forward?
I think it needed to be pushed forward because in that scene we meet Jeremy Talbot, so he's introduced as someone that works for the British consulate. In that scene is um they talk about that there's a Queen's Ball coming up. So that comes up
Right.
later as well. And when she has to go back, she's like, "Yeah, no problem, I can go back." So like it's so she already knows the layout, like she knows the entrance, she knows kind of where she's going. So I think that that was integral. And her message to Jeremy Talbot pings him as well. It alerts him that, Jumping Jack Flash is back. And so it pushes him to kind of do what he's going to do next in the movie. So I think it's pivotal. So Terry's back at work. And it's a work day, and she's introduced to the new employee, Martin, and he's giving his card out to everybody. Like, if you need me, call me. And he gives his card to Terry. And later that night, Terry messages Jack, and we find out that he's trapped in Eastern Europe and he needs an exit because he is British intelligence. And that's when she's like, "Oh no, like, what have I got myself into?" He then says he tried to contact the consulate, but they won't acknowledge his existence. He then asks her to go to his apartment and to get a frying pan. Now, there's a handyman that shows up, and he says, "Look, I'm here to fix your monitor." But Terry says, "Look, there's nothing wrong with my monitor." And he's like, "No, no, no, I'm just going to fix it." And she's like, "Well, there's, I'm just going to call security just to make sure that he's sent you down because there's nothing wrong with it. It's totally fine." And so I actually, when I was a kid, I thought this scene was really spooky. She turns around and Penny moves the camera so the handyman is just out of sight. She calls up to the security. She says, "Yeah, did you send somebody down?" And she turns around and to ask what his name is, and he's like completely gone. And I was like, "Oh, that's creepy," because you didn't see him leave, and there's only one exit and entry, and you're like, "Oh, what is this?" But as a kid, I always found that really creepy. But that was integral as well because there's something about her computer where she's getting messages from Jack, and that guy is going to come back later.
Yeah, I listen. I love this scene because I think this scene does a really, really good job at building up the quote unquote danger that Terry is in when that computer technician shows up to do a false tune up on her computer. Even as a kid, I was suspicious about that guy. Like Dean just said, the scene where Terry goes to confirm this guy's identity by calling the front desk and asking if they had sent someone to work on her computer, when she moves away from the when as she's talking to the people on the phone, and when she cycles back to ask this guy's name, the way that Penny Marshall did shoot that, like Dean just said, was genius, and it did actually bring a sense of danger and a sense of fear into a quote unquote just really, really funny comedy movie. I thought that was very, very, very well done by Penny Marshall. The one moment where I thought as a kid, it's you know it's just a little ridiculous that the spy would send this woman to his apartment and sending her there to get a frying pan. Of all the things that you could send somebody to your house to, I mean, look, this guy is supposed to be a spy embedded in a country that he can't even get out of. And what does he do? Not only does he confide in a stranger that works in a bank, which is a little odd. But he sends this woman to his apartment to get a fucking frying pan.
But
Really?
he's a spy, right? So everything he
I
does has
know.
to be covert. So like, would you
I
think
know.
that important information would be on the back of a frying pan? No. That's
Never.
why it works.
Never.
That's why it works.
That's why it works, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit, that's why it works. You know what? Strike that. Forget it. It's genius, guys. It's
Stricken
genius.
from the record. So
Strike that.
yeah.
Strike that.
Terry takes a cab to Jack's place and tells the cab driver to just wait and she'll be out soon. She walks in and a phone call comes in and the answering machine gets it and we hear Jack's voice and he's got a very, very nice English accent and Terry kind of likes it. So she's kind of snooping around his apartment and she sees a photo with the name Sarah Sinai 82 with a picture of a pretty woman. And she turns and she hears these noises and she turns to see the front door closing and she starts panicking. And then she goes, okay, I got to get out of here. Got to get the frying pan. So she opens the oven, frying pan's in the oven. She grabs it, she leaves. But when she leaves, she doesn't notice that pinned to the back of the door is actually a Polaroid photo of her looking at the Sarah Sinai photo. That creeped me the fuck out when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, what? And then she runs outside, gets in the cab, but in the driver's seat is actually the handyman from before that was trying to fix her computer, who pulls a gun on her. And then he's like, look, just be quiet. And he starts driving the car. And as he starts driving, she hits him over the head with the frying pan and jumps out and the cab crashes. So now she's in it. Now you know, okay, someone's after her.
I really, really, really love the scene of her going through Jumping Jack Flash's apartment because she really, really, really has this moment of awe when she goes to his apartment. His apartment is spacious, neat, full of expensive stuff. He has a great stereo system. His apartment is everything that her apartment is not. Jumping Jack
Oh
Flash
my
is
God,
the
yeah.
absolute.
Complete opposite.
You like that,
I
huh?
like it.
Uh, Jumping Jack Flash Jumping Jack Flash is the complete opposite to what she is. Her life is chaos and unpredictability, and his life is neat and precise. Everything where it needs to be. And I just love that contrast that Penny Marshall gave to these two characters. The moment when she goes outside of his apartment and we see the back of his door, like Dean said, her photo on the back of his door is the most creepiest thing you could fucking imagine. However, when she goes into the cab and we find the computer repair guy there with a gun to her face, it's so stupid that he says, relax, the meat is running. And when he turns his head, she whacks him on the head with the fucking frying pan. Why the fuck would you say that to somebody that you have a gunpoint? It's so stupid.
Because you're crazy, right?
I know. Well, you know what? Well, he kind of is crazy, isn't he?
She gets home, and on the back of the frying pan are names and numbers. So she starts calling them, and one of them picks up. And he's like, look, I have to meet now. I'm getting on a flight in 3 hours. And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, you want to meet now? And he's like, yeah. So she's at the docks by herself, right? It's the weirdest meeting place. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's in New York. She's a woman. She's by herself. And she's so funny. She's standing there talking to herself. She's like, I don't even know why I'm here. I should just scream, victim here, victim here, which is true. And then the guy, Van Meter, he shows up. And he's asking, like, who do you work for? And she's like, I work for a bank, man. I don't. And he's like, what? You don't know anything about this? And she's like, I don't know dick about this. And he's like, wait, you're a civilian? And she's like, yes. And then he's like, oh my God. And she goes, I get this message from a guy who calls himself Jack and he's telling me to give a message to the British consulate. And he's like, what was the message? And she goes, dogs barking, can't fly without umbrella. And instantly he knows what that is. And she's like, wait, you know what this is? And he's like, I hope he's still alive. And then the guy starts hearing footsteps behind him and he kind of grabs Terry and they start walking and then they start running. And she's like, oh, are you late for your flight? Like, why are we running? Because she doesn't know there's someone, because she's not aware. He is. And so they start running and he ends up pushing her into the ocean because they're on the docks. And then we see this guy shoot Van Meter, this guy, and his body falls into the water, right? Terry's already in the water. She comes up and she's like, has no idea what's going on. And then she's like, Mr. Van Meter, Mr. Van Meter. And then like his dead body comes up like right in front of her and she's like, ew, 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 ew. She just like doggy paddles away. Which would 100% be my reaction. Ew. But I mean, that scene is fucking hilarious. It's so fun.
Terry's whole interaction with Van Meter is so delightfully wonderful because it shows you how out of the loop and how unprepared Terry is for the shit that is happening to her. I really like how the writer and Penny Marshall sort of pushed the story forward by uh giving Terry a character that knows so that knows what's happening here and that knows what the phrase that Jumpy Jack Flash gave her. But I love how in this scene, I love how they show that Terry is just a civilian and how unprepared she is for what she's going to endure for the rest of the movie. I mean, for God's sakes, when they start running, she has no idea that somebody's after them. And when they shoot Van Meter and she goes swimming in the fucking ocean or whatever, her reaction to his body coming up is just fucking gold, and I laugh my ass off every single time. And I did, and I did in the rewatch for this conversation. It's just so wonderful how innocent and how hilariously funny Whoopi Goldberg makes her character. It's just wonderful.
So Terry's at the police station. Obviously, she's soaking wet. She's in hysterics. And the policeman is not taking her serious. Like, he's picking his teeth. He's not taking her seriously at all.
This is so, look, I'm going to just say one thing. It's so stupid for her to go to police because what good going to the police does she think like what does she hope to achieve by this? Because like I'm really surprised that this thought didn't run through her head. Like, people are trying to kill her, so going to the police, they, like, it's really it really bothers me that she kind of really didn't think about this because, like, if somebody's trying to kill you, going to the police is like the worst thing that you could do, isn't it?
I would go to the police. What would you do?
I would be too afraid to go to the police because you know why? Because I would probably be paranoid. Like, maybe the people that are trying to kill me have contacts in the police. And if I go to the police, that'll put me in worse danger, and that'll put me in a situation where it'll make it'll make them easier to knock me off.
Okay, stop watching procedural movies. Okay,
I gotta start doing that.
let's do that. Not every police station has a mole that's going to kill you.
Yeah, that's
Stop doing
that's
that.
right. I gotta stop doing that.
Oh, movies have killed it for
Oh,
everybody.
yes, off yeah. Movies, movies are like the best entertainment, but movies make real life situations like this really, really paranoid.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
Martin from work arrives and they said they fished his card out of her pocket because remember when he was the new guy, he gave everybody his card. And Martin asks, what happened? And the cop says she fell into the river. And then we found her and she says, I didn't fall into the river. I was thrown. And the cop says, by your pimp, your John. She says, oh, you think there's a lot of work down there? You think I'm giving blowjobs down there to goldfish? And he's just like, does not want to like have this conversation. She looks like a crazy person. And then she says, there is a dead man floating around in the river. And the cop says, he looked, there's no one. And then she throws profanity at him. She just fucking loses it. And Martin has to like physically restrain her because she's like, you are not listening to me. And he's like, get her out of here. I don't want to see her again, which like the cop is doing the wrong thing. But it's a really, really funny scene of, I think if she didn't go to the cops, people would be going, why don't you go to the cops? But she's gone and they're not listening to her. So she can't go to the cops again. She's got no safety net. Whatever this is, she has to figure it out herself. So that's what that scene kind of does.
Yeah, listen, hearing you talk about it really, really changed my opinion on it because you're right. If she didn't go to the cops, she would probably have other characters around her telling her that she has to go to the cops. She has to make sure that she's not being chased by a psychopath. But by her going to the cops and by her acting the way that she has, really, 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 from a character point of view, put her up against the wall. And uh, at this point in the movie, she does not have many places that she can turn to.
Exactly. So it's her, and if she's gonna get out of it, it's her. So I think that that's really
Yeah,
good screenwriting.
yeah. By the way, one of the best lines in the movie is like, what do you think we do down there? What do you think we do? Give blowjobs to goldfish?"
Oh my god, that's so
Oh,
funny.
that's so good, so good.
So the next day, Terry's back at work and she's looking through the newspaper. Oh, no, sorry. A few days later, she's looking through the newspaper searching for a story on the guy that was killed, and there's nothing. And then Martin picks up the paper and says, "You weren't looking in obituaries." And she's like, "Ah, thank God." Because she wants to, like, was this real or did she make it up? But it was real. She ends up going to the guy's funeral. Now, what's interesting is Jeremy Talbot is there, the guy from the British consulate. So that's weird. And the priest says the guy, Van Meter, died of a heart attack. And so right there, something's being covered up because we know he didn't die of a heart attack. So who has told the priest that this guy has died of a heart attack? She ends up meeting one of the wives of one of the names on the back of the frying pan that she can't get a hold of. Now, the wife says her husband is supposed to be with Jack, but is obviously not with Jack, so she doesn't know what's happened to him. She thinks it's the KGB that's trying to stop her from, helping Jack. Now, I always thought, I was like, KGB, oh, that's Russian intelligence, right? So I was like, maybe I should look it up. So I looked it up. KGB was actually the Soviet Union's intelligence agency. And I was like, oh, I don't know why I always thought it was Russian. But it was the Soviet Union's intelligence agency before it was dissolved in the 90s. But that's what the KGB is, in case nobody knew. That doesn't come back again, by the way. But I just thought that was an interesting
No.
fact.
Yeah, but also, look, I love spy movies, and I've always known what the KGB is. So you could have, like, asked me. Uh, but, but seriously, but that scene when Terry goes to Van Meter's funeral, it's a wonderful scene, and it's also another way to push the story forward. And I love that moment when the priest said, when the priest indicates that Van Meter died of a heart attack, when Terry and the audience knows that that's not true. So I also love the fact that she also got a chance to interact with a few people, with, with the few people that she tried to contact on the frying pan. It was just a really, really cool way to push this to push the story forward, or propel the story forward, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. So Terry's back at work and she's messaging Jack and she tells him everything that's kind of gone down. And he asks, "Look, can you go back to the British consulate? I need you to use one of their computers as it has exit contacts I can use." And she's like, "Yeah, sure, I can go back," because she's already been there, right? So it's no problem. And Terry says, "Oh, there's the Queen's anniversary ball that's on tonight, so I could go." And he goes, "Maybe you should get a dinner jacket." And she's like, "Oh shit, Terry." He thinks she's a guy, and she goes, I might get a nice dress." And Jack is like, "Oh my God, I had no idea you're a woman." And says, "Look, I can't ask you to continue. I can't ask you to do any more. I'm sorry." And she goes, "Are you saying this because I'm a woman?" And he's like, "Correct." And she gets the shits, man. She's like, "Are you fucking serious? I've done all this shit for you. And now because I'm a woman, you don't want me to do anything." Like, she's in it now. She's like, "No, fuck this. I'm in it and I'm going to do whatever it takes because I've already done all this shit." And no. Eventually, she convinces him. And he's like, okay, okay, okay. Well, you're going to need an invitation for the ball.
In his defense, it is really, 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 it is really strange for a woman to have a male sounding name. So I completely get that he was confused and he thought the whole time he was talking to a man. But I also love how once I love how the way Terry stands up for herself and says no, just because you find out that I'm a woman doesn't mean that I'm not capable of finishing this crazy adventure that you send me on.
Mm.
And I I love that. I love the fact that he tries to protect her, but she says, "Oh no, there's no fucking way that I'm not finishing what I started. I got shot at. I almost got kidnapped by this guy, by this taxi driver. So I absolutely love her sort of her sort of response to him trying to protect her.
It would be any woman's response, like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, no, no.
It'll be yours.
Oh, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, "Are you hmm?" But, yeah, I do understand how he misinterpreted that. I 100%
Yeah.
because he would have thought it was a guy, but she says it's short for Teresa, so it's a nickname. But anyway, the next minute, Terry shows up, at the Queen's ball and she's waiting in line and she's got this massive wig on and sparkly blue dress, and she gets there and the secretary says, "Invitation?" She goes, "No, I don't have one." And the secretary goes, "Well, you have to have an invitation." And she goes, "No, no, you don't understand. I'm the entertainment." And then she presses play on this like cassette player that she's got pinned to her dress. And then a song starts playing and she starts miming to the song and she's slowly making her way into the ball. She's just distracting everybody so nobody asks shit. And the wife of the guy on the pan is there and she says and then she sees the woman from the photo from Jack's apartment, Sarah Sinai, and she says hello to her as if she knows her. She's like, "Sarah Sinai of 82?" She's like, "Yeah." Sarah has no idea who this woman is, but she introduces herself anyway. And then Terry says to Liz, which is the wife of the guy, "I need to get up to the third floor." And Liz asks, "How can I help you?" And then Terry bumps into Jeremy Talbot, which they've already met twice at the funeral and at the British consulate like a couple days before. And he's sus about her. And he kind of forces her to dance with him because he knows that something's up. He knows she knows Jack. He knows she's trying to help him and he's trying to stop her, like foil whatever it is that she's trying to do. So Terry can't get away. And then Liz sees this and Liz asks to cut in so Terry can get away. So she does. Liz has drawn a map of the whole building for Terry. So Terry makes her way upstairs. Now, the room she needs to get into is past two security guards, but she can't get to it. So what she has to do is she has to enter via the window, which means climbing onto the roof. So that's how she gets into the ball, which I think is ingenious. I thought it was a little bit of maybe a coincidence that Liz was there because, like, why would she be at the Queen's ball? Maybe because her husband was British, but it wasn't actually said that he was British because Van Meter was on the back of the pan and he wasn't British. So I'm not sure why she was there, but I liked that she
I'll
was.
no, I'll tell you why she was there. Right, are you ready? We say it every few episodes.
Right as convenience.
Right is convenience. Right is convenience, 100%. I love the fact that Terry tries to fucking weasel her way into this party. It's just a blast seeing Whoopi Goldberg trying to pass herself off as the entertainment. But also, I love the fact that she actually gets to where she needs to go by having characters that she met previously sort of usher sort of she uses she uses the other characters that she's met previously to usher herself to where she needs to go. I really, really, really like that about the scene. Although I just said it's sort of writer's convenience that these characters are there in that moment it when it really kind of doesn't make sense that they shouldn't be there in the first place. I understand why the writers did that, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with it.
I think it was the only way they could do it. So Terry climbs the roof, which is a really funny scene because she's just a nobody and she doesn't know how to climb a roof. I don't know how to climb a roof. She keeps slipping and she's in a dress. And it's just a really, really funny scene. She gets to the window, she climbs through the window, and Terry connects like a modem to the computer when a guard enters because the computers start making noise, but they're supposed to make noise, but she thinks she's done it, but it wasn't. So a guard enters and turns on the paper shredder to shred a printout. Now, apparently the printout happens maybe every half an hour or whatever, and they have to come in and do, the whatever they're doing. So he leaves. And then Terry leans over to see if the security guards are, not looking at her and if he's gone. And then she gets her dress caught in the shredder, which as a kid I always found so fucking funny. And the music they put over it and the fact that they sped it up, it looked even funnier. So she has this like fight with the shredder that's shredding her dress, and her dress is like falling down. She's got to keep pulling it up. Anyway, eventually she wins and half her dress is gone. She exits back into the ballroom and waves to Liz, who like she has to leave, but Jeremy Talbot and his little henchman is standing in front of her, and she can't kind of leave. They need to be distracted. So Liz goes to the band leader and gives him a piece of paper. He looks at it, he reads it, and then God Save the Queen starts playing. And when that starts playing, they all have to stand at attention. They kind of can't move, and they have to, it's like, what is it? It's like what you guys do with this Star Spangled Banner. We have to like stand to
Yeah.
attention. Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have to do that, and everyone in the room has to do it. So Terry slips out unnoticed. Now, listen, she could have left because Talbot and the other guy were facing the opposite direction. She could have left without Liz doing that, but it was fine.
Look, I love this movie. I've seen it a million times, but the one scene that really, really doesn't play great for me is that scene when Terry has the fight with the printer. I find it so over the top, kind of slapsticky, sort of like Looney Tune,
Oh,
sort of like a Looney Tune bit.
yeah.
And and the fact that they sped it up kind of made it even more ridiculous. But that scene actually plays better when you watch this movie drunk. Um, because the last time that I saw this movie, other than today, I watched this movie drunk a couple months ago, and that scene played like $1,000,000. But listen, I do agree with you that um, when Terry makes her way back down to the main party where everyone is, there's no need for Liz to sort of distract Talbot and his other goons, because like Dean said, they were facing the other way. So there's no need for Terry to instruct the band to start playing God Save the Queen for Terry to slip out. She could have slipped out anyway.
Yeah, she could have.
So I'm in complete agreement with you that the end button to that scene wasn't really necessary.
So Terry gets home, and like right after this, she takes her wig off, her dress is half gone, she's just about had it, and she sees her apartment has been basically ransacked. And she's like, oh my God. So she hears footsteps coming down the hallway, and it's Martin. Martin comes in and she tries to like attack him with like a squash racket. And he's like, I'm just coming in to check up on you to see if you're okay. And she's like, well, does everything look okay? And so he looks at her half gone dress and he goes, is there something wrong with your dress? And she just deadpan looks at him. She goes, I got moths. I got big mutant junkie moths. He's just like, well, all right. So she basically locks him. She kicks him out. Now, I like that scene because it's funny. I don't necessarily think we needed it because it didn't really push anything forward other than the fact that her apartment was ransacked. But we could have had that at another time, and we already know she's being followed. So I think that was a little bit overkill.
We did not need that scene. I mean, it was a hilarious, sweet scene. It was just like a cool down scene of watching her come home and take stock.
Yeah.
But we really didn't need it.
No, I agree. So Terry informs Jack that it's done and he can come home now. And as Jack basically hacks into the computer at the consulate, Jeremy Talbot knows this and turns it off, stopping Jack from getting his exit contact. And Jack basically wants to give up, but Terry won't let him. So Terry goes to Liz's house to speak with her, and her house, like at night, and her house is completely empty, which is really fucking eerie. Like there's no furniture or nothing, because she was at her house before in a really, really quick scene, and it was a house full of everything. As she leaves, a man pulls up in a car, and he's actually one of the names on the back of the frying pan, and he wants to talk to Terry. So she gets in she doesn't want to get into the car, and it's actually a funny scene for trying to get into a car because she doesn't know who this fucking guy is. Anyway, he tells her the company moved Liz away and that her husband is dead and she's got a new name, a new identity, a new everything, so you're never going to see her again. He also tells her to back away from the situation because Jack is a pawn and basically is expendable. So he's gone there, and the reason why the consulate is not acknowledging him is because, that's kind of how the spy business goes. Sometimes it's like you're a liability, and so it's like no, they need him to die, which is why they're not helping him or giving him his exit contact. Again, I don't know if this scene actually pushes anything forward because Liz was there as writer's convenience to help Terry when she needed it. Terry doesn't need help, so then we never see Liz again. The warning, yeah, I don't think this scene really did anything.
Liz was a device, and once the writers used her to their content, she wasn't really necessary, so that's why they took her off the board. And I also agree with you, Dean. I don't think the scene of Terry being confronted by these guys and being told that sometimes in the spy trade, spies need to be hung out left to dry. I don't think this scene really accomplished anything except maybe make Terry more dead set on getting Jack back to safety. But in all honesty, this whole scene could have been taken out, and the director and the writers could have saved themselves some money.
So Terry's at work. She's on the computer and she's making a list of all the good guys and all the bad guys, all the people she can trust and all the people she can't. And she gets to Sarah Sinai and she's like, I don't know about her. I don't know if she's good or not. And so and I think this is funny, she goes to use the phone at work. And it's a public phone at work. And she goes and she picks it up. And as soon as she picks it up, her boss catches her. And he's like, what are you doing? And she's like, my mom got run over and I need to see if she's okay. And he's like, oh, didn't she get run over with a bus last week? Your mom's having a really tough week. And Terry's like, she's been busted. She just hangs up the phone, gives him this dirty look and just walks off. Next minute, on her work break, she's running to use a payphone outside. And she wants to call to find out where Sarah Sinai is because she wants to have a chat with her to see where she's at, which side of the fence she's on. There's this guy that keeps tapping on the door with a fucking umbrella, and she gets pissed at him. And she basically says, go away. I'm on the phone, go away. So she finds out that Sarah is at a place called Elizabeth Arden all day. And she's like, oh, okay, great. So that's where I'm going to go. Now, a tow truck hooks up to the back of the payphone, bumping it, but Terry doesn't turn around because she thinks it's the guy banging on the door again. She's like, no, just go away. So she turns around to leave, and the tall guy, the guy that actually shot Van Meter, is there, and he glares at her, and she's like, And then, the truck, it's hooked up to the payphone, and then it pulls the payphone behind the truck down the street, which is quite funny. Terry is on the phone to someone in the call center, and she's like, call the police. I'm a little black woman in a big silver box. And it's like, do you know what's funny? The fact that this is in New York, and like, if this happened now, I don't think any New Yorker would find this strange. They're like, oh, there's a person in a payphone that's being dragged down the street. Cool. Whatever. You want a coffee? Great. Let's just go in here. I just think that's just like typical, because nobody on the street did anything. They didn't look. They didn't care. They're like, yeah, I'm just minding my own business. It's actually a really, really funny scene.
No, it is a really, really funny scene, and unlike the scene with Terry and the printer, where I found it quite comical. There's something about Whoopi Goldberg being dragged down the streets, being dragged down the street in New York in a fucking payphone that I found hilarious. Every time I see this movie, that's one of the moments where I just laugh out loud. And like Dean said, the fact that nobody pays it any mind or pays it any attention just makes it play better. It totally, totally does.
So the truck turns, and when it turns, the box actually detaches, and Terry gets out of the box, and there's a police car that shows up, and Terry approaches the car. Thank God you're here. But it's actually the handyman, the bad handyman, and he grabs her, and he injects her with a truth serum. Now, to me, this is like the funniest fucking scene in the whole thing. Injects her with a truth serum, and he asks, what's Jack's code key? And Terry is giggling like she's high as fuck. And she says, the key is the key. And he's like, what are you talking? I have no idea. But it's the truth. The key is the key, right? But he has no idea what she's talking about. So he shoves her into the car. And Terry grabs the police radio. She's like, hello, help, help, help. And he puts his arm in to stop her. And she winds the window up and his arm is stuck. And then she puts the car in drive and the car starts moving and he's stuck. And it's quite funny. And he's running beside the car. And she says, you deserve it, asshole. And that's the truth. Oh my God. The next part is even funnier, but it's funny because I love in movies where it's like lie, lie, where you have to tell the truth. And it's like anything that's in your brain, you say it. And this is what the next scene coming up is. But what did you think of that, the beginning of that scene?
It's just fucking great. I mean, look, Terry being given the true serum and then dragging the henchman guy in the car and going, "You deserve it, asshole." It's just fucking great. That whole scene is absolute gold.
So Terry gets in a cab and she's like, I got to go to Elizabeth Arden. I got to save my friend Jack. And then the cab pulls up at Elizabeth Arden. She's still high from the serum. And before she enters, she's like, who the fuck is Elizabeth Arden? Like, it's just something that you just moment, you're like, who the fuck is this person? Anyway, if you didn't know, Elizabeth Arden founded one of the biggest cosmetics companies in the 1920s. So she's quite big in the cosmetics world. Anyway, so she stumbles in and a security guard steps up. And Terry says, this is a face of a woman on the edge. Now you have to make a decision. Do you want to work here or do you want to live? And this guard is like, it doesn't know what to do. And he goes, yeah, I quit. And they're like, what? And so there's no more security, nobody left to stop her. I can't describe the scene exactly. It's so fun. Every single person she walks past, she has a comment, but it's realistic. It's like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh my God, you look terrible as a woman. And it's like, yeah, that's a man. She's like, oh, okay. And it's just every single person, she has like a fucking hilarious comment because she's high and she tells the truth. And it's just so, she's like, what the fuck is this place? Why are you people doing this to yourself? Like, anyway, it's just like a high-end salon. So she ends up finding Sarah and asks for her help to bring Jack home for an exit contact. And Sarah refuses. She says, yeah, you know what? I'm not getting involved. I knew Jack a long time ago. You know, he knew the business and, you know, that's it. So anyway, that's a fucking hilarious scene.
It's a really hilarious scene, but it also really demonstrates to the audience how dedicated Terry is to getting Jack back home. Look, she is fucking high off her ass, but still, when she's high off her ass, she still has Jack's best interests at heart. And at this point, she's the only one in this film who is concerned with Jack's safety and is concerned with getting him back home safely.
Yeah, it seems like she's the only one. So this is all happening on her lunch break. So she has to go back to work. And she's high, so she stumbles into work.
She can't go back to work like this.
Right. She stumbles back to work, and everyone's like, "Are you okay?" Because she's just like she falls down the stairs, like she's just like walking as if she's just pissed drunk. And then she is, again, obviously still high. When her boss confronts her in front of everybody, he's like, "You know what? I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this." And she's just like, again, she's on the truth serum, and she says, I've just had the worst few days of my entire life. And the last thing I need is you in my face. And then she rips his toupee off his head and everybody starts laughing because nobody likes this guy. And he doesn't know what to do because he's a boss, but he doesn't have balls. He's not intimidating. He's just like a little nerd that decided I want to be a boss to control people. That's who he is.
He's a spineless twit.
He's a spineless twit. Later on at home, Terry, who's calmed down from the drugs, there's a knock on her door and Sarah stops by and gives Terry an envelope with a contact for Jack and a rendezvous point for Jack to escape and to come back to England. Because she thought about it, she's like, okay, I asked my husband and he said yes. So,
yeah, listen, it's really great to see Terry give her boss basically what he deserves. And it's a great scene when Terry rips off his toupee and this spineless bastard has nothing to say. But I really like the scene when Terry goes back home and this woman who who just essentially said to Terry, "No, I'm not gonna help you," has a change of heart, and she gives Terry the one thing that could possibly bring Jack home. I think that's a great way in the 3rd act to push the story forward one more time, um, to lead this film to its conclusion.
So Terry ends up giving Jack the info and says, "Look, as payment, I'll take a dinner." And he's like, "Yep, great. As soon as I get back, we're going to have dinner." On her way home, she's walking at home at night, and she starts getting harassed by these 3 dickhead guys. And she tries to get away from them, and she's like, "No, you know what? No, you don't want me. Like, I'm dirty and all that stuff." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And then she turns around and she sees Jeremy Talbot's henchman get out of a car in front of her. And she turns around. Oh, she says she's got like herpes or something, right? And then she turns around to the 3 guys. She goes, "I'm cured. I'm cured. Yeah, let's party. Let's go have sex." And they're like, "Oh my God." They're like, "Yeah, let's do drugs." Like, out of the lesser evils, the 3 dickheads are probably the ones you want to go with, not the henchmen. um, and so she's like, "Yeah, let's go." So she turns around again, and the guy that drove the tow truck that killed Van Meter is there, and he shoots her with a trank. And the 3 guys run off.
Listen, that's a great scene, but the most wonderful thing about it is Whoopi Goldberg trying to convince herself to go with these 3 knuckleheads as opposed to Van Meter's henchmen. It's just a really, really great scene of someone who is trying to get out, someone who is trying to save her life, and someone who is trying to avoid getting kidnapped by fucking henchmen who are probably going to kill her.
Yeah, yeah. So Terry wakes up because she's been tranked, and she's surrounded by Jeremy Talbot and his basically henchmen, his goons. And they tell her that they're the ones that gave Sarah the contact. So basically, if Jack contacts this contact, he's going to be killed. So Terry says, "That's not the contact that I sent." When we know it is, but she's just trying to like fuck with them. And they're like, and they believe her, but they're not sure. But they need to be sure. And now they want to know what she told him. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what I told him, but I didn't tell him that." Now, one of the thugs tries to intimidate her, which is quite funny, with like all these torture tools, and they've got these like mannequins, and he's putting drills through their head. She's just like, like, it's her hilarious. Her face is fucking hilarious. And we learn that Jack found out the reason that they don't want Jack to come back is Jack found out that Jeremy Talbot was actually a mole for the KGB. So that's why they need to find him and to kill him, because it's the KGB that are after him, and Jeremy Talbot works at the British consulate. So he's stopping him from getting all the contacts because everybody listens to him and they don't know he's a mole. She ends up escaping and rushes to work to inform Jack.
I love the scene for multiple reasons. It's really, really great watching Whoopi Goldberg's reactions to Talbert's henchmen, like drilling these mannequins, giving her an idea of the torture that she's going to endure if she doesn't talk and if she doesn't give them what they want. But it's also a really good scene because finally we get the actual reason why Talbert and his goons wanted to leave Jack marooned where he was, because Talbert ended up being a mole for the KGB. So it's a really, really wonderful scene. But I also think that the writer and the director, Penny Marshall, take a little bit too long to tell us the entire reason why Jack is being marooned where he is and why he's not being allowed to return home.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It's a little bit too long. So Terry
Right.
rushes to work because she has to use her computer. And she messages back Jack. And just before she hits kind of send, Talbot shows up and says, "Tell him everything is fine and to go meet the contact." And she's like, "Yeah, you know what? Do it yourself." And then a whole thing happens where the bank gets shot up by the goons and by Jeremy, and Martin ends up shooting the goons and handcuffs Talbot, and Terry sends the message that it's a trap because Jack's like, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave. And so she hits send and she sends that it's a trap. Martin asks Terry, because you're not expecting that from Martin, because the way that the actor plays it is so like innocent. So you're not expecting Martin to come out and like shoot people. So Martin asks Terry what's his code, because Martin is CIA and he's basically been planted there to protect Terry and to get Jack. And Terry gives it to him. She says, it's B flat, it's B flat. So Martin types to Jack that it's Peter Kane. Peter Kane is one of the names on the back of the frying pan. and that he's fine and that, he'll give him an exit contact to get home. Um, the interesting thing is, well, Terry tells Jack not to forget their dinner date. The interesting thing is, why couldn't Martin just tell Terry, I'm Peter Kane, get on the computer and tell Jack, is Peter Kane, this is your exit contact, done.
You know what? You know what? There is no reason why Martin couldn't tell Terry that his name wasn't Terry and that his name was in fact Peter Kane. But I think the writers did that to give the audience one more big surprise.
Yeah.
Um, because if they would have come if they would have come out straight with it, it wouldn't been it wouldn't have this la- th- this last moment in the third act wouldn't have been so impactful.
Actually, I know why they did it, because I think Martin, because he works for the CIA, they needed to uncover who the mole was, because I don't think they knew who it was.
Right.
So they needed to let her go through it, but he was there to protect her in
Right.
case anything happened.
You know what? That's probably it. That's probably it. You probably hit the nail right on the head.
I literally just got that in my head. I was like, oh, I think that's why. I'm not good with espionage movies, people. It's not my forte.
No, I mean, look. I love espionage movies, and for years, this one quirk about this movie has really got me. Oh no, he should have said who he was all along. Oh no,
Mm.
he made the right choice by hiding his identity.
Yeah.
So for years, I've been waffling, just as Dean has.
So Terry has gone to the restaurant because she's gone to meet Jack. And she's waiting for him until basically the restaurant closes and he doesn't show. Martin arrives and he tells her Jack is in London and couldn't make it. He could have called. I don't know, something.
Yes, he could have
He
called.
could have done
He could have
something.
called.
So Terry tries to basically blow it off like it's no big deal, but we can see that she is extremely hurt. Uh, I think she feels like she wasn't important enough for him to him after everything that she's done. He can't even like come and make it to the dinner date, which is sad because all she's wanted is like love. She wants that story, and it's really sad seeing her sit there after everything she's been through, and it's like foiled again.
Yeah, listen, I look as many times as I've seen this movie, I never liked the fact that Jack doesn't show up to their date. I mean, what a dick. And the fact that Kane has to show up and say, "Oh, he's in London and he was too busy to call you." Bullshit. Bullshit. If you if you have a friendship or relationship with a woman that you really care about, it doesn't matter if it's the 80s. You fucking call that woman.
It doesn't matter if it's the 80s. You find a phone and you fucking call them. You call someone that knows them. Yeah, no, you're right. So Terry is back at work and her friends are trying to get her to go out, but she's still kind of depressed about Jack. She doesn't want to, she's trying to get over it because of the relationship he's done with Jack. She's not talking to him anymore and she's just kind of got to put it in the past. Now, Jack pops up on a computer. He messages her, apologizing, but Terry is hurt and annoyed with him. And she throws her glasses on the table and he says, careful, you'll break your glasses. And it takes her a second. And then she says,
Oh.
where are you? And he says, 2 rows back on the left. And her eyes are just like, oh, fuck. And then a man puts his hand on her shoulder, asking her to turn around. And we know this man is Jack by his voice, because we know what his voice sounds like by his answering machine. And she turns and she says, hi, Jack. And they hug and he asks her out for dinner and she says yes and they walk out. And that's the end of the movie, but it's really good. I like the end of the movie. It's nice. It ties everything up nicely. It's sweet. I like it.
The ending of this movie is so sweet because it's so wonderful when she throws her glasses down on the table and he says, "Be careful with your glasses, you might break them." And when he comes behind her and puts his hand on her shoulder, it's so wonderful.
Mm.
And it gives Terry, the character, the happy ending that she so desperately craved throughout the course of this movie. It's so great.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Trivia?
Go ahead.
Originally, Shelley Long was supposed to star in the movie.
You know what? I listen, as a guy who likes Cheers, I've never liked Shelley Long.
Oh,
I
I
find her
love
to
her.
be what?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? Shelley Long is hilarious. I think she would have done great.
Wait a minute. Okay, we have to discuss that later. But okay.
This was interesting. Burt Reynolds was the original choice to direct, but had a falling out with the producer.
Uh, I don't see that. Do you?
No. What an odd choice. What an odd choice.
Very odd choice.
Originally, another director had filmed 6 weeks before they replaced him with Penny Marshall.
But we have no idea who that other director is, right?
Well, we do. I just can't remember his name. But this behind the scenes on this movie was crazy. That's why they had so many writers. They had so many rewrites. There was
Didn't
issues between Penny and Whoopi. This was Penny's first major motion picture, so nobody respected her. Nobody listened to her. Whoopi didn't listen to her. There were heaps of fucking issues.
Wow. Didn't Carrie come and do some rewriting for
I'm
this
not
movie?
sure. If she did, it would have been ghost rewriting.
Yeah. No, but that's really interesting to me that this movie had such a behind the scenes turmoil. Like I had no idea that this was Penny Marshall's first movie.
Yeah, she did TV, but this was her first movie. And yeah, but
Right.
Burt Reynolds has a falling out with the producer, and then they get another director who leaves after 6 weeks. Like there was big issues. It's like a miracle that the movie
See,
even fucking came out.
wow, it, it is a miracle.
My last piece of trivia is the original title of the movie was Knock Knock.
I like Jumping Jack Flash better. Knock Knock is lame.
It's lame, but it's the first thing that Jack ever sends to her, Knock Knock, which is probably why they did that. But yeah, Knock Knock is lame. Jumping Jack Flash is far more in your face. I prefer it. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
it
the
is.
end of my trivia.
All right, guys. So on that note, that'll bring this edition of the Mixtape Podcast to a close. Listen, guys, if you want to send us comments or questions, you can email us. Our email is themixtapepod at AOL.com. But if you like the show and you're going to come back next week we'll be talking about the film entitled Valentine. With that all out of the way and being said, for my co host, Dean Stark, I shall simply say if someone is ever kind enough to make you a mixtape, that must truly mean that they love you.
The Mixtape Podcast is a Balloonhead Productions presentation.